Welcome back to Murder on Record, where every case is etched in blood and the truth is buried in the fine print. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we dig through the dusty files, the overlooked evidence, and the whispered testimonies to bring long-forgotten crimes back into the light. Today, we're looking into a really deeply upsetting case, the death of Diane Marsh's 5-year-old autistic son. Diane was eventually convicted of negligent homicide and child abuse. So this deep dive, well, we're aiming to unpack what we know from the crime database sources about this tragedy
Right.
and, the questions it leaves us with.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And what immediately strikes you is the victim's vulnerability.
Absolutely. A 5-year-old autistic child.
Exactly. It just underscores the seriousness of it all. And it likely shaped how authorities approached it right from the start.
Mm-hmm.
The timeline we have shows that the initial response, was serious. Charges of first-degree murder and child abuse against Diane Marsh.
Right, first-degree murder, that's significant. But as you said, those weren't the final charges. The trial led to convictions for negligent homicide and child abuse instead, lesser charges. What does that shift, suggest to you about the evidence, maybe?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Negligent homicide,
Yes.
it suggests a failure in care that led to death, rather than a deliberate act, a premeditated act.
So maybe a lack of proven intent?
It points that way. The sources suggest, circumstances of neglect or abuse, but the legal outcome implies the prosecution couldn't definitively establish the intent needed for that murder conviction.
It makes you wonder about the specifics, doesn't it? Like, what did the medical evidence actually show? Were there, documented past instances of neglect?
Or was it more a culmination of things? We don't really get those granular details from the database entry, unfortunately.
And the investigation itself, I mean, you'd assume it was pretty thorough.
Oh, definitely. They look at everything. Medical records are key, obviously, for the child's history and the cause of death.
And interviews, right,
Good.
with anyone connected to the family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Family, friends, maybe teachers or doctors, trying to get a picture of the home life, the care practices.
And the home itself. Examining the living conditions, what would they typically look for there?
Sadly, in these kinds of cases, they're looking for patterns, signs of injury, maybe malnourishment, dehydration, just the overall state of the place. Was it safe, clean?
Were the child's basic needs met?
Exactly. And witness statements can be crucial, too. Did anyone raise concerns beforehand? Did they see anything worrying?
No, our source material, it's very factual, like a crime database would be. It doesn't really speculate on the why.
No, it sticks to the record.
But it does make you think, doesn't it, about the potential underlying factors. Caring for a child with autism, it can be incredibly demanding.
Immense pressure.
Yeah. And if there isn't enough support, financial, emotional, even just respite care, could that kind of strain contribute? Maybe unintentionally lead to neglect?
It's something you have to consider, even if we're careful not to speculate beyond the facts we have. It's widely known that families raising kids with special needs face huge challenges.
Right.
Things like limited access to services, the financial burden, maybe feeling isolated. It all adds up.
Yeah.
Creates a high-stress environment.
So this case, even just the outline, it does prompt you to think about what support Diane Marsh actually had or didn't have. Was it enough?
Precisely. And the database keeps that neutral tone, just laying out the facts of the case.
But even so, the implications are pretty stark.
They are. It highlights parental responsibility, especially with vulnerable children, and the serious legal consequences when things go wrong.
And makes you think about the time period, too, maybe. How our understanding of autism has changed, how support systems have evolved, or haven't.
That's a really important lens. Were the kinds of resources we might see today even available back then? Our source doesn't tell us that specific history, but it's vital context. Society's understanding, the support networks, they change over time. Reflecting on that gives you a broader perspective on the challenges these families faced.
So it's a tragic reminder, really.
Yeah, of the need for strong safety nets for both the children and their caregivers.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what we've pieced together from the sources is this basic, very sad story. A young autistic boy dies, circumstances look suspicious, the mother is arrested, and ultimately convicted of negligent homicide and child abuse.
That's the core of it.
But beyond those facts, it leaves you, the listener, with a lot to think about. Why the lesser charge exactly? What specific pressures might have been at play? What support systems failed or were missing?
And maybe, what does this case tell us about our collective responsibility? How do we better protect vulnerable kids?
It really shows the complexity, doesn't it? The legal system reached a conclusion, but the why behind it all? Well, the full story might still be partly in the shadows based on the info we have.
It definitely encourages you to think critically about the systemic issues that can intersect with individual lives in these really devastating ways.
Until next time, stay curious and keep your eyes on the evidence.